So I'm looking out over the creek, and I hope you can hear the birds again today. Some people said they couldn't hear them, but a lot of people could. You know, on my last video when I was sitting out on the porch swing, over here's where a lot of the birds congregate, over here in these woods. And they'll come out from the woods and come over in my yard and on my porch on the railings. But this creek is so peaceful. It was until this car come by, that is. But I hope you can hear the birds and hear the creek. It's just so soothing. This is one of my favorite places, you know, besides my porch swing. It's just a step out over here. And this is a lot of what you see behind me on the porch swing, but you don't see the whole picture. You know, you just see that little, whatever that little bit is in the screen, you see that. But I just wanted to bring you over here again today. I brought you over here a time or two, and just wanted to show you one of my favorite places too, is to walk over here. And we have some rocks over here that I sit on sometimes. And here comes another car. You know, it's been so quiet here today. Hardly no cars or trucks or anything has been up. But, you know, like I've always told you all, it's a conspiracy when Debbie Sue comes out here. The holler comes alive and people decide they need to go to town or need to go visiting. But that's okay. We just go with the flow. But just look at that creek. A lot of times I like to come up to this tree and just step in between it and peek over into the creek. I was telling my sister a while ago, I was talking to her, and I said, I'm gonna come out here to the creek and look around. She said, don't fall in. I told her I wouldn't, because there's a, you know, it's a pretty big fall over here, but if I fell in, there's not enough water to drown me or anything. I would just sit there, and providing I wasn't hurt or anything, I would just sit there and play in the water for a little while. Kick my shoes off like I did when I was a little girl, wading. Just go wading down into the water. But isn't that pretty? Looking down into the creek. It's so pretty down through there. You know, we've been in a drought, so even though we've had a lot of rain the past few days, you know, the rain can be aggravating, but it can be a blessing too. You know, God knows what we need, and He'll provide for us. Sometimes we may get a little aggravated and everything, but He knows what we need, so we just need to go with it and trust Him and trust the process, right? But, you know, that creek should be a little higher with all the rain that we've had, but, you know, we've got more rain coming in this week and this weekend, and so I'm sure it's going to be up and roaring. This creek has been up really high before, even though we had flood watches out the other day. You know, we wasn't in you know, any danger because, you know, this creek bank it's really low down there. And, you know, we would have to probably, you know, be in not Moses, but Noah's days, you know, for it to be a danger to us, you know, right here. But, you know, I know some of the other areas are more low lying than what we are and are more, you know, in a threat area. But right here, you know, we're really not. But if we would ever get flooded here, then, like I said, we probably would be almost back in Noah's days and would probably need an ark or something. But I just wanted to bring you out here, show you the creek again today, and chat with you for a few minutes and everything. So I just saw a bird, like a blackbird, flying up into the woods and everything. You know, sometimes we have these cranes that come flying overhead, and they love to come down into the creek. I would love for one to come down here so I could show you, but so far I haven't seen one. It's been a few weeks or so since I've seen a crane. They like to come out when it's a little bit cooler, it seems like. So, but it's warmed up a whole lot today. But yeah, hope y'all are having a good day today, and a peaceful day and a blessed day. Yeah. I just wanted to show you something over here too. I'll let you look at the creek as I walk over here. Here's a rose bush that we planted over here next to the creek. And it's a really pale pink rose bush. It belonged to my mother. And, you know, when she passed away, we brought a lot of her roses and flowers here. And, you know, my husband and his brother were doing a lot of work around our house and our yard, you know, years ago, and we had to transplant a lot of the flowers and everything. So we decided to plant some roses over here next to the creek, which I thought was a really good idea at the time. And but this rose bush, it is real fragile. As you can see, all the little petals, all the rain has just knocked these little petals off and everything. But even though it's real fragile, it's resilient, and it will come back and it will bloom all summer. And you know, it reminds me of a lot of us sometimes. You know, we're fragile and everything, but we're strong. You know, if we have God in our lives and we trust God and we have faith, then we're strong. You know, no matter what storms come at us, you know, and try to beat us down. You know, sometimes we may falter a little bit, just like these little petals falling off the rose bushes. We're not perfect. You know, we're human, and but God will protect us, and He'll make us strong, and we'll rise again, just like these roses. You know, the rain will beat them down, but they won't defeat them. And that's a lesson that I'm learning more and more when I look at all my roses and everything. When I see these petals, it breaks my heart to see all them petals. But I collect these petals sometimes, and I dry them, and I make potpourri out of them. And when my niece got married years ago, for her wedding, I collected so many rose petals beforehand, and I made little sachets and put them on the tables, and for her wedding. And so that was something for her, to remember her grandmother, my mom. So she was present at the wedding, from her roses, because my mom loved her flowers and her roses. So many times she would go out and spend hours in her flowers, and she loved coffee, and she would take her coffee cups out. And I think I've told this on one of my earlier videos when I just first started and never showed myself. I showed one of the rose bushes in the backyard, and she would take her coffee cups. She would drink her coffee while she was out there with her flowers, and she'd just leave her coffee cup wherever she was at. And sometimes it would be a couple of days, and she'd have to go out there when she was getting low on coffee cups in the house, and she would have to go out there and collect all her coffee cups and bring them in the house and wash them up. And you always know, when my mom was outside and everything, because her coffee cups would be everywhere outside. So that's such a great memory I have of her. But this is such a beautiful rose. Like I said, I love that pale pink. Pink is it is my favorite color. So yeah, but there is another pink rose bush back behind the house up on the hillside a little bit. And I'll show you that probably in another video sometime. But I just wanted to bring you out here today just for a peaceful walk along the creek and chat with you a little bit and show you the creek, and hopefully you could hear the birds and hear the creek sounds, and show you this rose bush. And there is another rose bush of hers that is growing wild, and somehow, let's just walk a little bit. I'm getting a little chatty today, I think. Look at this rose bush. We didn't plant this, but it's one of hers too. She loved the wild roses, and it is grown in the midst of all these weeds. And this was a forsythia bush that we planted. This was her bush too. But of course, the forsythias are not blooming right now. They did back around Easter time. They were so pretty and yellow and beautiful. But this rose bush somehow voluntarily started growing in the midst of this forsythia bush, which I find fascinating and beautiful at the same time. And I think it was we're trying to figure out how her rose bush got over here. But this was her rose bush. I think a clipping or something off this rose bush somehow made its way over here to the creek, which I find, like I said, fascinating, and it's such a beautiful story. And so I am just leaving it alone and letting it bloom where it wants to bloom, and letting it be what it wants to be. My husband, a lot of times, he'll say, we need to, clean that up and everything. And I said, no, I love wild things. I love them. Just let them be and let them grow where they want to be. So yeah, but I just wanted to bring you out here today and just show you the creek and let you hear the sounds of the creek and the birds and show you the roses and just tell you all about that. So I hope y'all have a beautiful day, a beautiful rest of your week. And as I always say, let's just go with God. Let's go gently and go gracefully. Bye-bye.